Already got stuff falling off. Out of every 100 men, 10 shouldn't even be there. 80 are mere targets. 9 are the real fighters, and we're lucky to have them, for they make the battle. Ah, but the one. One is the warrior, and he will bring the others back. As you've heard previously, we talked about generations. I'm going to talk about a little bit of different generation aspect. I'm going to talk about the generation of aircraft and air combat and how, as an Air Force, we have tried to create a 5th generation air warrior from a 4th generation foundation. Starting out, the generational aircraft from 1903 on, when military first got them from the Wright brothers, were canvas and wood aircraft. Mainly manned to be able to observe, fly near enemy lines, see what's going on, spot artillery, spot ground combat, and pass information. But as any good fighter pilot knows, they're going to get a pistol, they're going to get a hand grenade, and they're going to try to get in some kind of skirmish as they get up there. So the main innovation from that point on, transition to World War II, where technology, or an innovation in technology, or a transition or a leap in technology brings us heavy bomber aircraft. The first use of the wingman, or formation flying, is prevalent in this area. And then we get into what's called the first generation of aircraft, which is really the first generation of jet aircraft. Okay, this occurs 1945 to the mid-50s. Okay? It's mostly, the jet engine is the big innovational aspect of this transition, as well as they're still subsonic. However, as we go from the mid-50s to the early 60s, you get into the 2nd generation of aircraft. And this is where you start to see significant leaps in technology. You see radar put into aircraft. So for the first time, the pilots are able to actually see enemy aircraft without their eyeballs, to be able to see them on radar. You have missiles to shoot at them, so you don't have to shoot at them with the gun to protect what you're going after. Both radar and infrared missiles. As we get into the 3rd generation, that transition gets into more of the maneuverability, how the airplanes are able to turn, how high they're able to go, how fast they're able to go, and the munitions that they're able to drop. We get into the 4th generation. 3rd generation goes up to about 1970. The 4th generation spans a very long time frame, somewhere around 1970 up to the mid-1990s. The 4th generation of aircraft is, again, a little bit of a maneuverability increase, massive increases in the avionics capabilities, massive increases in the technology of the weapons employed, as well as the sensors. And then we get into the 5th generation. Okay, the 5th generation, the first 5th generation was the F-22. This aircraft brings very high maneuverability, very integrated sensors, so that not every sensor stands on its own anymore. You have things called sensor fusion, where all the data is merged into one piece to be able for the pilot to easily pick this out and make decisions and act on it. And the charge was leveled by senior Air Force leadership to not treat this aircraft like all the other aircraft up to that period. This is something new. This piece of technology is going to require vastly new ideas to be able to employ effectively and really outlast any adversary we have. So to do that, the charge was levied and the pilots were brought up. Now, these pilots weren't your ordinary Air Force pilots. These were the 4th generation leader of their fields. So in an F-16 Fighting Falcon, and the F-15C Eagle, which is primarily air-to-air, and the F-15E Strike Eagle, which is air-to-air and air-ground, they took the top aviators out of each of those career fields, mid-level majors to senior-level captains, who had graduated from the Weapons School course, which is the highest course you can go through in the Air Force tactically, and they put them in one group together and said, create the tactics for this new technology. And don't focus on the 4th generation tactics that already exist. We want you to be creative and start an immense, diverse dive, hands off to whatever you want to do to try to make this as lethal as possible. And they did. They came up with concepts that were absolutely unheard of for the time. And it was phenomenal, the ground that they covered. However, as the aircraft increased production and more started to hit the streets and started to become operationally ready to go to war, the Air Force had to continue to man it. And to be able to man it, it had to change the pool of talent that it was drawing from. You can't continually only take the top 6 guys. So it started taking mid-level captains, junior level captains, eventually into the lieutenants, the 22-year-old brand new college graduate flying a $100 million airplane. And it's at that point that we started to figure out that maybe what was designed is not the best thing to use. It is for those top 6 guys, but it may not be easily transferable to the lesser experienced type talent pool that we're drawing from. It's about this time that a second group of pilots is chosen to stand up the weapons school alongside the operational test and evaluation squadron. So you have the guys who test tactics, and you have the guys who help develop and create the Air Force's top instructor cadre. They were approached and said, you are to try to integrate 4th generation back into 5th generation tactics. 4th generation is back on the table. So we're going to go back in history. We're going to look at things 4th generationally. And we're going to see what we can do to combine these 2 concepts and what you come up with. And what we found was phenomenal. What we found was not only by going back to previous tactics from other aircraft that we'd used in the past, we made the transition to this airplane much easier. The new pilots coming into it had a foundation in that. They didn't have the 1,500 hours, but they might have had the 200 hours in the F-15 or the F-16. So they had exposure to concepts in their 4th generational tactics that allowed them to more easily progress. The other thing that we determined was this, until this point, had kind of operated on its own. The F-22 in most missions and training had gone out, and it was on its own little island. It was able to go out, employ, and everything else. But as soon as you expected it to go and employ with a bunch of F-16s and a bunch of F-15s and a bunch of B-1s and a bunch of C-17s, and you name the airplane, nobody out there really understood what the F-22 was doing. It was only that select few that did. But as you integrate the older tactics into this platform, now people started to understand, and they were able to predict and expect what was going to happen or where the F-22s would be and fill contracts. So not only did the tactics become easier and more transferable, they also became broader and more integratable throughout. So where does this story take us? Well, where it really takes us is, let's see if it goes. Where it really takes us is a look at what innovation really is. As a military, we get very focused at times on technology because, as I explained, the 1st generation, 2nd generation, these are technological innovations. So up top, you have a World War II, all the way 3rd, 4th, and 5th gen aircraft flying together. And this is what a lot of people consider innovation. What I'm going to tell you is I don't really think technological innovation is innovation. Innovation is not the new idea. Innovation is a new combination of ideas. It is taking the old with a concept of the new. It is merging these things together and leaving everything on the table to choose from. And that process is not a technologically driven process. That is a human-driven process. So as opposed to getting focused on the new trinket or the new gadget or the new iPod or the new iPad or the iGeneration, what you focus on is the people and what the people bring to it, because no matter how technologically advanced these 4 aircraft are, without the human innovation involved to employ them, develop them, and essentially enlist them for the protection, in this case, of the United States, they're essentially worthless. Okay? It is the people that make the innovation. Thanks.